Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Consider cooking.
Hi, my name is Jesse, and this is all about how to make a great cup of tea. As you can see here, got a lot of stuff with me. A lot of people are probably like, what's so complicated about tea? You just got a bag and you throw it in a mug and you put some hot water in it, and that's it. I'm here to tell you that there's a lot more to it than that. Everyone kind of is familiar with like the basic concept of tea, right? You've got most of the time the tea you get in a store is going to be some variety of like bagged black. All tea, green, black, and then more exotic ones like white or yellow or pura all come from the same plant, the tea plant. Any other kind of tea, like an herbal tea made from like chamomile or rooibos or any other kind of like flowery or fruity flavors, are technically not tea. All true tea has caffeine in it, and how much caffeine in it depends on how the tea is prepared before it goes into the bag. Now, the difference between black, green, and then others like white and yellow and pura all depend on when it's harvested. The earlier the tea plant is harvested and dried, the less caffeine it's going to have in it and the lighter the flavor it's going to have. So like white tea, like this bad boy here, is going to be freshly picked, and it's going to be probably not even roasted, and when it's prepared it's going to have a very light flavor and it's not going to have that much caffeine in it. Up from there is going to be something like green tea. And green tea is kind of like it's picked a little bit later, and a lot of times green tea does get roasted. That kind of leans toward a lot of Japanese green teas have like a roasted texture, a taste to them. And that's kind of like an in-between measure of like, say, caffeine and bitterness. And then when tea is picked at like its peak ripeness, for lack of a better word, it's black tea, which is something like this. I know it says mango here, but it's black tea. And black tea is also frequently roasted, and because it's at kind of its peak, it's got the most caffeine in it. Not nearly as much as like, say, a cup of coffee. Depending on how much caffeine you want in it, maybe none, so you go herbal, which is fine, which is something like this guy here, this Tezo Wild Sweet Orange. That's herbal, so that doesn't have any caffeine in it at all. All the way through white, green, black, white, green, and black. So the easy way to prepare some tea is with, obviously, like, you just boil some water and you put it in a bag, in a mug, and you call it a day. I'm here to tell you that there's a lot more to it than that. Most people are going to want to use something like a kettle. If you don't have access to that, just in a microwave with some water. The thing is, most people think you have to boil it. You don't actually want to boil your water for your tea. If you pour scalding hot water over the bag and burn it, that's going to lead to burnt tasting tea. For the kind of tea you actually want different temperatures. Black, you actually want the highest temperature, and then going down with levels of caffeine, you want lower and lower temperatures. So like something like, say, green tea, you only want like at 170. And then herbal teas, you might even want even a little bit lower. Black tea, you might probably want something like 190 or maybe 200 at the most, but not boiling. Again, the reason for that is it kind of ruins the flavor of the tea. These are loose leaf teas. They all come in a bag, and they're individually sealed for freshness, and it's literally loose tea leaves. That requires a little bit more complex preparation. You get better flavor with loose leaf teas and just a better quality taste, and you kind of want to keep them sealed to preserve that freshness. So now I'm going to show you how to prepare. This I just freshly boiled and have let it cool. You always kind of want to use freshly drawn water because it has a higher oxygen content. When you put the water in and you taste the tea, it's not going to taste flat. Like if you leave water in the kettle and then just reheat it, it's going to taste pretty flat because there's less bubbles. So for bag tea, that's pretty simple. Just get your tea mug, get your tea bag of choice. Now, you always want to put the bag into the mug before you pour, because you want to pour the water over the bag, because that will get the flavor mixing more appropriately. And again, this is just bagged green tea. You can pick this up anywhere. And we just take our water, right? And there we go. So that's pretty easy, right? And of course, you can add whatever kind of sweetener you want if you want that. A lot of people take their black tea English style, like with cream and sugar. I know, especially like if I'm drinking something like Earl Grey, that's how I like to do it, just because it's too bitter otherwise. Another thing for taste is how long you want to leave the bag in. Now, at minimum, you want it in for like a couple of minutes, right? But if you want it stronger, if you like the flavor of your tea a bit stronger, leave it in for longer. It'll get stronger. Conversely, if you don't want it as bitter, don't leave it in as long. And again, the kind of tea you put in determines kind of how long you want to steep it for. So like, you don't want to steep, say, black tea, as long as you steep green tea, because the black tea will get bitter faster. I like to take my green tea with honey, but I did not bring honey with me today, so I'm not going to do that right now, but this is pretty good on its own. Now, for loose leaf, it's a little bit more complicated. What you want is one of these, a strainer. Now I've got two that come in, various shapes and sizes, but you don't want like a tea ball. Or tea infuser. This is much better, and it's cheaper. So you want to set that just on the rim, right? I'm going to do the gopi green with citron because that sounds delicious. Most people, or a lot of people, will pre-measure, obviously, or measure up, because with leaves, there's not a precise measurement on this, obviously. And about half a teaspoon is probably good enough for most people. There's actually specific tea scoops you can get, but you don't have to worry about that. Like a quarter to half a teaspoon is fine. Again, if you want a stronger flavor faster, put in more tea. So we just put our leaves in, right? I'll seal this up again. It smells great. Our leaves on the bottom of our strainer. And we take our water, and it's cooled enough to the point to where it's not going to burn, obviously, and ruin the flavor. Especially, again, with loose leaf tea, because a lot of loose leaf tea, you're going to get a lot more delicate flavors. Like, obviously, this is gopi green with citron, so you want to, like, preserve that citrus note that's in the tea with it. So you've got your tea here, and you just steep it a couple times, and then you leave it in for as long as you want. I like my tea a little bit stronger, so I'm probably going to leave that guy in for longer than just a couple of minutes, because there's some really rare tea you can get, like this guy here. This is called Pura Tea. You can only probably get this from like a store that imports. Yeah, it comes in like these little bark shards like that. Great though, this smells amazing. And you can prepare this several different ways. This is a type of, it's kind of like green tea pura. It's prepared a little bit differently, but that's kind of like a rarity. You're not going to find that like really in a store. Again, there are various kinds. There are hundreds of different flavors of specifically green and black. If you want something with a lighter finish, go with a white tea or an herbal. If you want something stronger, like a good cup of coffee, steep that green tea for longer, or get some black tea. I'm going to try this. So I steep probably for a couple of minutes. Now, normally you would want something to set your steeper on, obviously. You get like a saucer or a plate or whatever you want, because it's going to drip everywhere. Your liquid should be clear if it's good tea and you've used like decent water. So the water, you should be able to see through down to the bottom of the cup and see whatever leaves are down there. Smells delicious. That's great. From me to you, here's having some great tea, and I hope you can brew the perfect cup of your own.